I'm starting to run out of room in my closet for my clothes, and so this week I was going through my closet to see how many coats and jackets I have, and well, I've got a few. I noticed I have two hooded sweatshirts. I wear these when I'm outside hiking and I want something that's movable. I've got I've got this really thick hooded sweatshirt. This is when it's really cold outside and I want to be hiking. And here's my rain jacket. And let's see, I've got this brown denim jacket, very nice jacket. I like wearing that, and when the weather starts to turn. I've got this puffy blue jacket, very lightweight, but very warm. I really like this. It's good to wear this when it's a little bit too cold for that brown jacket. Oh, and I've got this Bears jacket here. My wife won this in a raffle, and she gave it to me. And since I'm from Chicago, I love having a Bears jacket. And it's lightweight, it's warm. I really like that. And let's see. Oh, I've got a trench coat. Let me just try this on for a second. Yeah, what's nice about trench coats is that they fit easily over like a suit. And what I really like about them is that you look like a spy. And then there's this coat. I got this many years ago from a church member. He got it from East Germany, and I think it's kind of neat looking. I kind of look like an East German border guard or something like that. It's not very warm though. And then I've got my winter coat. So, and actually, this is actually a 2-in-1 coat. There's that blue puffy jacket that actually goes inside here. That's the interior for the coat. So anyway, let's see. I add that all up, and that's with all the hooded sweatshirts and the jackets and the coats, that's 10 coats. John the Baptist, he caused quite a stir 2,000 years ago when he announced that the Messiah is coming and that people better straighten out their lives if they want to be ready for this new world. And he told people to repent. He told them to change their lives around and come into the water of the Jordan River and be baptized, and then they would be ready for the coming of the Messiah. And people came out into the wilderness by the droves, and they were getting baptized. But they did have a question. They wondered, well, what does it mean to repent? Your repent means to, change your hearts, change your minds, change your life. But exactly how should they change their lives? So they asked him, what should we do? And his answer was this: whoever has 2 coats must share with those who have none. And those who have food must do likewise. So how does John the Baptist tell us to prepare for the Messiah? Does he tell us to go out and get a Christmas tree and hang lights on it? No. Does he tell us to get out the Christmas dishes? No. Does he tell us to go out and buy presents for all of our friends and family? No. The way to prepare for the coming of the Messiah is to share all the extra you have with those who don't have. So what would John the Baptist say to me about my 10 coats? I would imagine he would say, you can keep 1 and give away 9. Now, I would say to John the Baptist, well, no, wait a minute. I don't live in Palestine. I live in a climate that's colder and much more variable than your climate, and so I really need more coats for different kinds of weather. And if John the Baptist were in a charitable mood, he might say, all right, you can keep 3 and then give away 7. And then I would say to him, well, how about if I keep 5 and the 2 in one coat is counted as one coat? And then he would glare at me. And then he would say, well, what's that you're wearing right now? And I'd say, this is a sport coat. This does not count, though. This is not a coat. And he'd say, well, why doesn't it count? And I would say, well, because you don't wear this outdoors. And he would say, well, what's it for then? And I would say, well, this is so I look sharp. It's to look nice. It's a little bit more formal. And he would say, and how many of those do you have? And I would say, I have 4 of these. And I have 2 suits in addition. And he would say to me, and why do you need 4 sport coats and 2 suits? And I would say to him, so that I'm a properly dressed pastor. And then he would say to me, and since when do pastors have to have all of these coats? And then I would look at him and I'd see that he's wearing a camel hair shirt, and I'd realize I'm not going to win this argument. What does John the Baptist want us to do? All right, let's face it, the New Testament, for us middle-class Americans, the New Testament is embarrassing, shocking, and very demanding. It tells us to do all kinds of things that are unreasonable and not very fashionable. For instance, how about a parable of Jesus, the one about the rich farmer? He tells us about a farmer who had bumper crops, and the farmer then says to himself, what should I do? I've got all these extra crops. What am I going to do with all this extra? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull down my barns and I'll just build bigger barns. And then I'll be able to store all those extra crops, and then I'm going to be set for life. I can relax. And then God says to him, you fool, your life is due tonight. Now that parable doesn't seem to make much sense in our culture, does it? I mean, what's wrong with building bigger barns? What's wrong with saving up for your retirement so you're going to have a comfortable retirement? That parable goes against every bit of financial planning that we have as a culture. But Jesus' point is that when we accumulate wealth and possessions for ourselves while others are starving, that is morally and spiritually destructive. Once we get on that accumulation train, it's really hard to get off. The more we have, the more we want. And then the bigger barns we need to store it all, or the bigger houses we need to store it all. Talking about houses, back in 1970, the average American home was 1,400 square feet. You know what it is today? 2,700 square feet. Almost twice as big as it was in 1970, and yet our families are smaller. 2,700 square feet. Do you know what the average home in Britain is? 818 square feet. And in the cities like London, it's even less than that. Right now, they're building 3-bedroom homes in London, and they're typically 700 square feet. In China, it's even less. In Beijing, the typical house being built in Beijing is 650 square feet. We don't really need these huge homes that we have. And think of all the resources that have to go into a big house, all the materials that have to go into it, all the heating and air conditioning that goes into it, all the maintenance, all the cleaning, and then there's just the price of the house itself. Now imagine all of those resources instead going to those who have inadequate housing, to help out people that are living on the streets, or that are living in slums, or in shelters, or in refugee camps. I've noticed that this generation that's coming up now, the young adults now, aren't as focused on possessions, on having lots of stuff like me and my generation. I look at even my my two children, my daughter, who's going to be turning 24 here pretty soon. For the past year and a half, she's lived in a car and in a tent. Not because she had to, not because she's impoverished, but that was a choice that she made. My son, he's 26. He lives in a small house with 4 other guys, and they share the rent, and each has their little room to live in. Now, I'm sure that if and when my kids get married and have kids, that lifestyle is going to change. But I don't think they're ever going to be as focused on collecting stuff like my generation is. Recently, I read about a man by the name of Ted Hauser who made a decision that he was going to sell or give away one possession every day for 100 days. It was a spiritual discipline for him. And so by the end of 100 days, he had gotten rid of 100 of his possessions. And then with the money that he had accumulated by selling many of those things, he gave it away to charity. He didn't just use that money for buying something else for himself, he gave it away. This Advent, as we are approaching the birth of Jesus, as we are approaching the coming of the Messiah, our culture is telling us that we need to go on a spending binge, that we need to buy lots of presents for our family and friends so that on Christmas morning we can all be giving each other a lot of things and we can just pile up even more stuff. And that's exactly the opposite of what John the Baptist tells us to do. His vision is to share all that we have, all the extra we have, with those who don't have. Now, I have to admit that clear, ethical directive is too radical for me. I'm still going to have more coats than what I need. I'm still going to live in a house that's bigger than what I need. But I want to move toward John's vision. I want to move toward Jesus' vision. I want to live more simply so that more people can simply live. I want to live toward a world where everyone has enough, but not too much. Living toward that kind of world is how we prepare for the coming of the Messiah.